Hello and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy episode 617 for the week of Monday, July 1st, 2024. My name is Ryan Higgins. Who's with me this week?
Brock Sager.
That's it. Well, that's not it. That's it for the main cast. We have two very special guests with us today. Chris and Jessica Hayth from Crooked Dog Comics in Middletown, Ohio. Chris, Jessica, say hello.
Hello.
Look at that.
Happy to be here.
Perfect. Yeah, happy to have you guys here. Yeah. Now, for the listeners, the reason I have you guys here, Chris, you've been a longtime fan of the podcast, and we've chatted online for a long time. And I wanted to have you on. I wanted to have both of you on because you opened a comic book store.
Yes, I did.
Like very recently.
Yep.
Okay. So
it's 2 months ago recently.
6 weeks ago.
It was Free Comic Day, right? It was Free Comic Day
the
first day, or that was like a soft opening?
Well, we had a soft opening.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, about I don't know, not very recently. We'll go with that.
Yeah. I'm going to do my normal spiel. I want to hear your secret origin, how you got into comics, but I want to talk to you guys mostly about opening a comic store because for me, I've been doing this for a long time, and I didn't open a comic store. I worked at one and then bought. I bought an existing one, and at this point, that was almost 20 years ago, right? So I get people asking me all the time, what should I have advice for what to do for running a shop, but I have not actually had to open my own store now, right? So I'd love to hear stuff you guys did, any advice you have for other people that are interested in opening a comic store, kind of what your first few months have been like, because, again, I came in from an existing shop, and it's a much easier way to do it because a lot of the kind of that stuff's already built, right? A lot of the systems are already up and running. So I'd love to hear, from the ground up, kind of what your process was and everything. But first, secret origin time. I know you listen to the podcast. You didn't wake up 2 months ago and say, I'm going to open a comic shop having never read one before. I'm assuming you've read comics before that.
Yeah, I've read a couple.
What's your secret origin? Yeah, for the both of you. How'd you get into this? From the fan point of view, from the fandom end.
From a fan point of view,
kind of what was your path? Yeah.
Okay. I was a comic book fan all growing up throughout when I was a kid. Comic books, Star Wars, Dungeons and Dragons. I had to stop playing Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s because my parents learned about the Satanic Panic and they got rid of my books. Yeah, so I had to switch to the comics. I am 50 years old. I was born in 1974, so I grew up in the 80s. Back in the 80s, back in those days, it was better if you got caught with a Playboy than a comic book in school. But I was always a fan, and then real life hit when I became like teenager, and I fell out of it for a long time, college and all that good stuff. But more recently, I would say probably about 10 years ago, a couple years after Jess and I got married, I started getting back into comics, and who boy did I ever get back into them?
Yeah, you did.
And I remember I was at my former place of work in Louisville when I was down there, and I was closing up shop, and she said, well, what do you want to do when you retire? Because the job that I had before, we could retire at 50, which is what I did in March of this year. And
congrats.
Thank you. And I said, I would love to open up a comic book shop. And she said, let's do it. And I said, okay. And it's been kind of a long process after that. Years of planning and years of talking about it has finally come to fruition. My retirement date came and passed. I gave myself 24 hours to enjoy it. And then I immediately jumped into working at the shop full time.
Welcome to the rest of your life. So there's no getting out of this alive. Okay, there's no retirement from the comic industry, unfortunately. So
yes, and people start telling me about this work-life balance.
It doesn't exist.
It's a myth. It's a myth. It's a myth.
I'm still trying to get him to get into that.
Yeah, that might take a while. It took a while for Ryan.
It doesn't exist.
It took a while. It took years for him to take a vacation.
Well, yeah, my vacations are to Comic-Con, right? Like, exactly. So, yeah. No, it doesn't get better as it goes on. But from the fan perspective, let's go back to that for a second.
Sure.
For Chris, so what did you read? Like, are you like a Marvel, DC diehard, or did you get like all the weird indie '80s stuff? You're a Turtles fan? Like, kind of what was your interest?
I was a little bit old for the Turtles.
Okay.
The Turtles came out a little bit. I wasn't really into them. I guess I wasn't too old for Turtles. I mean, they came out, 84, I believe?
Yeah, for the comic. Yeah,
yeah.
The comic was pretty adult comparatively. Yeah.
Agreed. Mostly I read Batman, Green Lantern, and occasionally Spider-Man. The basics that most kids read or whatever, if they do these days. But I would say the one that really, really got me back into comics as an adult was probably it was the Jeff Johns Green Lantern run, which in my opinion was one of the best runs of any comic ever.
I think we've talked about that a few times on this podcast. One of my favorites. We mentioned it once or twice. Did you? Was it like the movies and media stuff that kind of got you back in? Were you like there to see Iron Man, and did you watch like Spider-Man and X-Men when they came out in the early 2000s, or were you kind of like not really connected to them at that point, or were you still pretty into that stuff?
I did watch the movies. I was so focused in my work and my social life. I was also in a relationship, or also known as a marriage before, which wasn't really conducive to working, having comics and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. But I don't know. It was something that was in my blood, and it's been in my blood for a long time, and I didn't realize it was. And like a bad case of herpes, it came back to me, and it flared up again, and it's been flared up ever since.
Oh, goodness gracious. I think it would be better than herpes.
Well, cold sore simplex one, so that's what I'm
we definitely see this all the time. I'd say, on average, people read when they're younger. They maybe were into it when they're kids, but comics aren't cheap. And when it's sort of like, when people get a little bit older, they sort of reflect back to the stuff when they were kids and like, oh, I love this stuff. And now, I actually have money to go and buy this stuff. Oh, I can collect this stuff. Oh, I'm watching the movies. Oh, now, I actually have some money to, throw to this stuff. Oh, there's some nice collections, hardcovers, first appearances. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a little different when you're a kid and you've got your, dollar allowance and you're picking up a couple quarter comics and like that's the end of it, right? But those few books stick with you. And then when I'm a rare case where I never got out of it. From the minute I've read, I never stopped. But most people, 90% of the people I talk to,
you read comics?
Well, I buy them. That's important. 90% of the people I talk to, 95% of the people, they do it a little bit when they're younger. And then they get out of it in high school, especially high school, college. They don't have the time or the money. And then, first job comes around, maybe 25, 30, get married. All of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, this thing I used to do. I remember this. Jessica, did you read comics? You into this stuff at all? What's your backstory with this stuff?
I never read a comic book when I was a kid. I only have a sister, and I never had anybody around me who read comic books, so I wasn't introduced to them. I would say, I would read comic strips in the newspaper with my grandpa. Mm-hmm. So that was the extent of it. But once Chris started getting back into comic books, I've always liked geeky stuff. I love Star Wars.
Sure. Okay.
Chris and I met playing an online video game. I love video games. Yeah. So nice. I'm into that.
You're not like coming into this stuff like you've never been.
Right,
no, you know that. Yeah, you've seen it and you watch the movies, I'm assuming.
Yep, watch the movies, everything. Yep. So I'm familiar with it, but never read a comic book. I think the first comic book, I don't even remember what the first I feel like I just started reading a bunch. Chris would be like, this one's really cool, you should try it out. I read Stray Dogs. I've read 8 Billion Genies. I like a lot of indie stuff. The first mainstream I would say that I've read was the Dan Slott run of Silver Surfer.
That's a great book.
Yeah, and I bawled my eyes out at the end, and I was like, I didn't know comic books could be like this.
Yeah.
And So that's kind of, I more or less, I like the culture of it, I guess, is what it is. Like, I feel like most geeks and nerds and people who are into all this, like, we're the outcasts, so we, group together, and I just wanted to see Chris do something after retirement that he really enjoyed and loved. So
nice. That's great.
I'm the supportive wife.
It's very that's you need that. Trust me. You because
something healthier than sitting on the couch and drinking beer.
Yeah.
a lot of the Leanne sitting behind me, or, like, you've got to put up with a lot of nonsense in this industry. And so, there are good times and bad times, and, it's you need that support from your spouse or significant other, because it's it's not easy. We'll get into that. So Chris, you're a couple of years older than us, but me and Brock were sort of around, like, it's kind of the tail end of, like, the newsstand era, late 80s, early 90s. That thing those are kind of wrapping up. I think, Brock, you may have bought your first comic a year or two before me, but
I remember buying Spawn 5 off of a spinner rack in where my parents are from in Lawrenceville.
I thought you had stuff when you were a little bit younger. No,
I had random stuff that was just like somehow acquired. I don't remember.
But not that you bought
yourself. But not that I bought myself. The first one I actually bought was that Batman and the Outsiders #1. Yeah. But, like, I remember buying, like, Spawn 5 off of a spinner rack in a pharmacy in a small the small town my parents grew up in. So that was Spawn 5. So that was 92,
93.
Yeah.
Right there.
And then I always would randomly get, like, Archie digests whenever we were at the grocery store. So but like, I remember them being on, like, actual newsstands when you saw those things around.
Yeah. If you didn't, getting into comics now, I'm not going to say it's easier or harder. It's just extremely different because they were just around a lot more when we were kids. And so if you never really came across them as a kid, you're likely to have, you're not just going to come across a comic now. You kind of have to seek this stuff out. So, if I feel like kind of that late 80s, early 90s was your last chance to sort of, stumble across them in a convenience store or 7-Eleven or something.
I was born in 84. I don't ever remember, but maybe because I didn't look for them, I'm like, I don't ever remember seeing comic books just like.
Yeah, there would have been, like, Archie at the checkout stand of the supermarket, and and there would have been
some Marvel and DC stuff in the magazine section,
but stuffed in the magazine section when you were a kid, and and that's it, right? And so by the time you're 10, 12 years old or whatever, it would have been comic shops or nothing, really. Yeah. So again, pre-internet too, so those formative years, you're just if you weren't into them, you weren't going to see them.
I remember the very first comic I bought, I think it was like 7, 8, maybe. It was G.I. Joe #1, and I remember I bought it at a convenience store down the street from where I lived, and I still have it, and it's beat to shit, but I still have it. Yeah. But the very first book I remember buying was G.I. Joe #19, and I bought that at the comic book shop in Roanoke, Virginia, where I grew up. It's called B&D Comics, which is still there. And cool. The owner, Terry, she actually drove up from Virginia on a 6-hour drive to our soft opening on the 20th of April.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, it was really cool of her. She's a really freaking cool person, man. She's great. But
Transformers and G.I. Joe and Star Wars, those comics, again, for people, around our age, a lot of the people I talked to at the shop, those were a lot of people's first comics, because it's such an easy transition to come over from the cartoons or the movies to the comic. You're like, well, maybe you knew what Spider-Man and Hulk were, but Star Wars, G.I. Joe, oh, hell yeah. I know exactly what this is. So, those were, for people kind of in their mid-late 40s, early 50s, those books are.
That's funny you say that, because now I'm thinking, and Star Wars are the first comic books that I read. Yeah, I started reading them in chronological order, all the newer ones, the once Marvel took over. Yep. And I just thought of that.
Yeah, no, it's their They don't always hold on to the readership long term, but they're a great starting point for a lot of people. And because I think they're never real continuity. I mean, Marvel can say the comics are continuity, but they're not, right? I mean, if a movie overrides
technically.
They are, but right, the books.
Because I've read the books and the comics and watched the movies, and they all intertwine somehow.
Right, but I'm sure I know people pay attention to this stuff. But if a movie wants to override the comics, they're going to do it, right? Sure. They're not, yeah. So yes, they count. Right, exactly. They count until they don't, right? So, but they're always really good books because people know those characters. Right. And now people know Spider-Man and Green Lantern and Poison Ivy and Batman and all this. Right? I mean, I think more the average person knows these characters more now than they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. But still, the amount of people that know Star Wars is still significantly more. So
for sure.
So the shop,
yes.
And I know I told you this. I'm sure I did. It's one of the very first things I tell people whenever this happens.
Don't open a comic store. Did he say that to you? That is normally his first. Don't open it. Don't do it.
No. I would never say that. It's always, are you ready for this? Because it is, turning your hobby into a business completely changes how you perceive everything about it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people burn out because you suddenly, if you want to just not read comics for 6 months or 6 years, you can, unless you own a comic shop. Then you're kind of required to hear about this stuff on a daily basis, whether you want to or not. So the joke always is, and my customers always say, I should just make a recording of myself every Wednesday morning saying, hi, thank you for coming in. You watched The Witcher last night. Here's my thoughts about that episode. And just hit play when people come up to the counter, so I never have to actually talk to them.
It's called Chat GPT, dude. Get it done.
Because I just have the exact same conversations 20 times a day. Because a lot of us are seeing or watching or experiencing a lot of the same stuff, and so it's a very you become.
You're a bartender.
I tell people I'm 50% bartender, 50% therapist, 5% comic shop owner, right? It's just
that math doesn't math.
No, right. It does not at all.
I was I'm not good at math, but
no. Oh, and that's another great thing about being a shop owner too. It's suddenly you have to deal with math a lot, and that sucks.
That's
also.
My job.
So good. Yeah, I have an accountant and a bookkeeper. I'm keep it away from me. I'm terrible at this. So that transition from a fan to it's one thing to sell a couple comics on eBay. It's another thing to be oh fuck, I have a building that I'm responsible for. Mm-hmm. I have insurance and rent, and I have a drawer full of money that someone could just walk in and stick a gun in my face. Things change pretty dramatically when you run a shop. And so, you guys just started, have you noticed, any of that, even in the first couple of weeks or months, do you kind of look at the stuff a little bit differently now?
I don't necessarily think I look at it differently. I look at it as more of a when I get the free time type thing. For the first few months that we were open, I guess the pulls that I probably had 15, 20, 30 pulls that I was reading. I've significantly decreased the amount that I am reading simply because of time. I'm being much more selective about what I am reading, but I'm keeping with the course. I still will always read Spider-Man. I will always read Batman. I will always read Green Lantern. I'm just a bit more selective on what I read of them.
Oh, right, because your free time, your work is now comics, so your free time, you're oh, do I want to do more comics?
Yeah.
I make a point at least once a week, sometimes twice on my days off, but it's at least once a week. I try to get through some of my collections, some of my backlog. I stay pretty current, within an issue or two of the stuff that I really like. It makes it, almost like a partial shift. This is right. This is also my job, but I do love it. But I'm I kind of think about it a little bit different, right?
Yeah, and I can see that. Just recently, I had a log of comics that I literally did not read any comics throughout all of April, all of May, and then just about 2 weeks ago, I had that stack of a very heavy book pack full of comics that I had yet to read, and I just went to town and I started kind of did the Netflix method of reading all my books that I had. I just binged the hell out of everything that I had in front of me, and now I'm caught up, and I'm like, okay, now what? But I'll figure something out.
Well, there's some coming out every week.
That is true. That's true.
Yeah, we got to sort them tomorrow and put them out on the wall.
Yeah.
It never ends.
I know.
Every week there's more comics and more comics, and they keep piling up. And you're like, oh, I just got rid of all the old comics from last week off the shelf and moved them where they're going and all this stuff. Now where do I put the new ones? Now there's more.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys
did. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know how you guys did for last week, but holy crap, that was the first week in a long time. I was like, how am I going to fit all this shit on this wall?
Oh yeah.
For new releases. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, the way we're set up is that we have the slat walls. We have 6 slat walls. That we went the vertical route, so they're 8x4 because they're 4 feet wide and 8 feet tall. Full of those, 6 of them are for Marvel. I have 4 for DC and 2 for Independence. And the Independence one is a constant struggle, is to get what to pull, what to put in the back issues, what to leave up there, and to constantly readjust it. The 2 independent wall takes as much time as all of them combined.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just I've read a lot of really cool books that I normally wouldn't have read. Anybody that's wanting to start, I mean, the podcast, I listened to you guys for years, and you guys.
Again apologize.
No, it was you guys, and there's another podcast out there called Contested Challengers, which is more of a deeper dive into the actual business aspect of a comic book shop. And you guys combined have really helped me prepare for the paradigm shift that was coming. And so I was never under any illusion that I was going to be sitting around just reading comics all day. I was never under that, which I guess some people did have.
But you reading the comic books helps you recommend books, and I sit in the back and do all the other stuff so you can do that.
That's true.
Let me just tell you, I will sit at the counter and nobody will come in. And then as soon as Chris goes up there, people just flood in and he makes so much money. So I'm like, you just sit up there and I'll be in the back.
But, I am not, there are definitely some shops that, they're like, oh, no, you must stand, you must have a name tag, and you could never read a comic, blah, blah. I am 100% down with reading comics in the shop if there's time. I used to have time, right? I mean, I think knowing the product is super important in comics, and I wish I had more time to do that now. Things have changed so dramatically in the last 20 years. The job is such a different job than it was. I think that's such an important part. I've said forever, if I ever got to the point where I'm not reading comics, I'm not going to stay at the store, because I've seen those shops where the people they're like, oh, I don't know, I don't read any of this shit. Just it's over there. Like, I don't want to be that guy, right? I've never been current, like, ever in comics. I think if you're current on your comics, there's a problem. Like, I don't think anyone should ever be current on their books. I always laugh when one of my customers is like, what do you think of this book that came out today? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll tell you in like 6 months when I read it. But
unless it's by Jeff Johns.
Well,
and it's a big title, and I need to read it now. Very select.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has been a while since I've had the break down a box and pull a book out and read it there. I don't do that too often these days. Maybe the last one, maybe Death Metal one. But
before Watchmen, but that was like 3 years.
Yeah, it was different.
Well, we've had quite a few people come in who have never read comic books, or they used to read them, and they're getting back into them, and we've recommended some, and they like took off with that. So I'm like, you have to know your product to be able to recommend it to people.
What I've recommended to other people is you're never going to know anything. Or you're never going to know everything.
Right.
So just pick a couple titles. We recently redid our Indian small press stuff by genre, which is something I highly recommend. I held off doing that for literally 20 years. I something about it didn't make sense, but the shift in graphic novels has changed so dramatically in recent years. I find organizing the small press stuff and indie stuff by genre is actually really helpful for this very specific reason. Because I find when people want Batman and Spider-Man, it's very easy to point them to Batman and Spider-Man.
Batman's right there. Spider-Man's
when
over
people
there.
say, when people are like, oh, do you recommend any horror comics? I was always like, well, this is alphabetical. I don't really. I mean, it's all kind of all over the place.
Severed,
kind of getting. So
you're trying to think of it in your head.
Yeah.
Well, right. What I found is not only having the stuff by genre is a lot easier. Also, just having like kind of 2 or 3 hits. Right. You're like recommend Saga, recommend something that's killing the children, but then also have like kind of that one-off. Like, well, I also like this weird one. Brock's like Day Tripper. He recommends that book all the time.
But that's not
right?
independent. That's DC.
No, but it's like sci-fi.
I'll do like Birthright or Manifest Destiny.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Have you like your 1 or 2 books that are kind of your own personal choice, and then you kind of know the couple bigger industry books, and then those are good places to start.
Grommets.
You guys read
Grommets?
The new one,
that's fantastic, man.
We sold a lot of copies of that first issue.
Good.
That should be a good like kind of trade once it once it comes out.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good idea to sort of have a kind of those baseline suggestions because you could. I stare at a wall of literally thousands of books, and I'm like, I mean, I just haven't read most of these. I don't have time to read every single book that's ever been published.
Oh, for sure.
So,
and like every book that you carry in your store.
Yeah, no, it's just not going to happen. Yeah.
Not to mention, like, you like different things, Yeah.
Well, our coworker Marshall had a great experience with everything in genre. Some lady came in and wanted to get a comic book for her grandmother. And for some reason, and Marshall's like, okay. And then he asks her a few questions, and they find out she probably wants like a romance book. So we have a romance section, and then we're talking, and it's like, well, romance has a bunch of, alphabet soup stuff. Like, we don't really have too many like actual like romance stuff. And then she's like, he's like getting recommendations from her. And then, well, what's your grandmother into? And Bridgerton came up, and and he's like, oh, though this might fit. It was by the people that wrote Bridgerton. So it's like, because we had the section, it was easier to kind of focus everything.
Yeah.
The only problem is when you go to like file stuff, you're like, what is this?
I know.
Well,
there are some times when I have to like look something. I'm like, what is this considered?
Yeah. Well, the problem is like, it's a romance in outer space.
So is it a romance or a sci-fi?
But it's a crime story, and it actually takes place 1,000 years in the past, and they have swords, and you're like, well, is this fantasy? Is this what?
Is it Doctor Who?
So like, yeah. It can get. It's funny. We actually, when I first sorted the stuff, I actually had like kind of like a media tie-in stuff for things like Doctor Who, and one of the other shop owners told me he had the best line. He said, nobody walks in and says, yes, can you recommend a media tie-in comic to me? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So Doctor Who and Star Trek go in sci-fi, right? It's like, Walking Dead is in horror. I mean, Walking Dead was a comic originally, but you know what I mean, right? Like, if it's I don't know, like the Witcher comics, right? That goes in like horror, right? Or fantasy, So, I think as long as you know where they are, it's fine.
That's why the hub is great, because you can actually look it up.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll talk about Hub because I know you guys are using that. But So as far as the physical like opening of the shop, what were your kind of?
Well, I already know
think you guys
two are nuts when it comes to opening a shop, because they opened on Free Comic Book Day.
I know. We are
and
crazy.
Star Wars Day. It was Star Wars Day, Free Comic Book Day, grand opening.
Nuts.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, no, I mean,
I was like, yo, man, you guys are glutton for punishment. Like, you really want to dive off the deep end.
It's a great day to open a shop, though.
It was. There was at one point, the fire marshal only had allowed to have like 30, 40 people in there. There was at one point a 45-minute wait to get into the store. and the line was wrapped around, I would say 300 yards down, and even around the corner on grand opening day. That was a hell of a day. It really was. That's awesome. Just absolutely blew any and all expectations that we had out of the water. And I could not have been happier. And it was a freaking amazing day.
Are there any shops within 20, 30 miles of you guys? Or is there anything kind of in your general area?
Well, it is Ohio, so you're not going to get any straight roads to take you from one place to the other.
Sure.
So, there's within 25, 30 miles. Yeah, there's actually one shop that's about 10 minutes away. 6 miles, about 10 minutes away. He does a lot more older books, and we do have some older books and stuff like that. But our focus is we're generally kind of we're not a traditional comic book shop, even though we do have, about 20,000 back issues and all the regular comics. But we also try to have a little bit of something for everybody, because we are in a small town. We're the only one around in the small town. There was a shop about 10 miles away, about maybe 15 miles away, that has now since closed down. That wasn't due to sales. That was due to a rent issue with him. The other shop, the biggest shop in Ohio, actually, is the one that I used to go to, and that's in Dayton. And it takes me about 40 minutes to go from shop to shop.
Yeah, so there's nothing right where you are.
No,
right?
There's nothing.
And that's that's pretty good, because you're going to get there's an audience there for it, and I've a lot of shops have become sort of mixed use, where it's gaming and merch and all that. You guys do a lot of gaming stuff too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's pretty common. Oh, I'll ask a couple of questions, but you sent me that picture of your game room thing. I want to hear about that.
Yeah. We had
crazy.
So we have a room in the back that when we found the space, we were like, what are we going to do with this? Like, it's not quite big enough for large gaming events. And it wasn't conducive for shopping. So we decided to theme it out. And so it's themed like a medieval tavern. And we have a custom D&D table. And we just decorated it all and made it available for people to rent.
Yeah, it's like those jerks you see on Instagram that are like, look at this thing I threw together over the weekend, and it's like this $500,000 custom, and you're like, yeah, great, thanks guys, wonderful, this is wonderful. And you sent me this, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I can barely build IKEA furniture, so I don't know how you people do this stuff.
I have to do all his furniture.
We didn't do anything. It was my mom.
Wow.
We said, Mom, this is what we want to do. And she said, I can do that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because I was still working at the time when all this build out was still going. So and with the overtime, I was pulling in probably close to 50, 60 hours a week. And the schedule, with the brutal schedule, I just did not have the time to do it. And so I had to design, and I drew it out. And, her mom and I, my mother-in-law is basically, she's a badass. I'm not going to lie. I don't have a mother-in-law that bakes you cookies and shit. I have a mother-in-law that helped me lay laminate flooring during COVID at my house, So that was pretty cool. I really got lucky there. But yeah, she's an electrician. She did, a lot of electrical, all the painting and stuff. We have speakers mounted in the ceiling and stuff. A TV on the wall, conduits. I'm very anal retentive about wires show and no wires show, which is a beautiful thing. But yeah, the back room, we put battery powered sconces up. There's an electric fireplace, and we can pipe in medieval tavern music on Spotify on the speaker. So you get really the ambiance and the full immersion of being like in a medieval tavern without the fire hazard. So that people kind of don't like fire hazards, understandably.
No, it's yeah. Did you guys post on your Facebook or Instagram or something like that? Anyone listening, go check it out. I'm just like, this isn't fair. You make the rest of us look so bad.
Well, just wait until they tell you what their rent is for their square footage. And then you'll have a heart
attack. $9 or whatever.
We did get a pretty good deal.
In California, they're like, we just add another zero to your rent every year. It's fine, right? Elon Musk, right? You could just pay for anything, right? And I'm like, oh my God,
I don't want to know him.
But opening the shop, so kind of in the lead up to it, again, like I said, I kind of came in having already worked at the shop and ran it and then bought it existing. So, those early days, kind of the in the year or two lead up, and now that you've been open for a while, for people interested, what would you say you did perfect, where you're like, yes, we thought this would work and it worked out perfectly? And then is there anything where you're like, we wanted to do this, it didn't really work out, we kind of messed this up, just those kind of pitfalls that people could fall into? Did you notice anything that like didn't quite work the way you wanted it to, and you maybe would have kind of approached from a bit of a different angle? Because anyone trying to open a business now, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
It's expensive. Rent's expensive, insurance is expensive.
I think one thing,
lumber, fixtures, right?
Yeah.
All that stuff's a lot. So yeah, what were kind of your experiences like in the physical opening of the store?
I think one thing that helped us is that I've owned my own business for 16 years. So I knew all the things we needed to do to get it like legal, all the places we need to register it and all the numbers we had to get and all those things. Also getting social media going. So we like had our social media going before we even started building out the store, just to let people know that it was coming. And finding the space was an accident. We didn't really know where we were going to have it. And I have a photography studio downtown next door to the comic book shop. And one day, that space, the shop, used to be Jazzercise. And one day I was walking out front and I noticed that it was no longer Jazzercise, and now there was a for rent sign in the window. And I came home and I said, Chris, the space next door to my photography studio is for rent. And this was almost 2 years ago. And we both looked at each other and we're like, well, it's not really time, but we should look at it. And so we did, and it was perfect. But it was just, we weren't ready to open yet. So,
well, it doesn't take, 2 minutes to open a comic shop.
Right. Right.
we moved shops, and for we took we had like set it up basically. We kind of already had everything set up, right? Mm-hmm. But we're like, okay, we're closed for 1 week to move to our new location, and it was like, I have a line of
seem like enough time.
Well, we already had the other store like prepped.
Yeah,
right?
we were prepping like a month and a half, 2 months prior. We were prepping the new space.
Right. So we already had everything was laid out. Everything was fine. So we're like, we literally just had to move product across the street, across the city. Right. Mm-hmm. It's like 5 minutes before opening. There's like 50 people out there. A week later, I have worked 20-hour days for a week solid, and I'm like, just shove shit in the back room. We'll deal with this later. I don't know what I'm doing. Just a solid week, and I was like having a couple, like a year or two, if you got the money and the time. Oh my god, it must that's great.
Yeah, we had to pay rent on it for
work.
A year before we did anything in it. That was kind of stressful, but we made it work. I think having that time really helped us to do things right, because I don't think either one of us felt super stressed before we actually opened.
Also, all the overtime I worked during that year also helped with the rent for that place.
We didn't get to see each other very much, but we got to have our space. You asked that question about what did we do, like, or what happened that we wish we would have done differently or something. And I'm like, I don't know if I can think of anything. I hate to
that's
be
great
like,
if that's the case.
Be like, oh, it was perfect and amazing. But
no, I'm notorious of like, I got this plan, we do this thing, and a year later I look at it and I'm like, wow, I hate this.
Yeah.
Like,
does this
I want to change this entirely.
And I have to stare at him and go, I hate you.
So like, I'm like, this seems like such a great idea. And we did this thing and I'm like, you set up perfectly. And I look at it and I'm like, I could do this better. No.
I do this. Why did I put myself through this?
It's like I could do this better. I know we can do this better. So like, in a year or two, look back at the shop and be like, what did I move? What did I change?
Yeah.
Because it'll be interesting to look back and think like, oh, maybe it's, because I think when you open up, right when you start, you're like, oh yeah, I did this right.
That's
the things I always tell
I'm
people.
like, I don't think we've been open long enough for us to
know.
like be able to look back and there. I mean, more or less, it's been just like learning what do people want, like what do our customers want to see in the store.
What was your like initial ordering of like graphic novels and like inventory? Like, what did you research websites or ask other comic book stores? Like,
PRH helped a lot with that.
PRH helped us.
Yeah, I wouldn't say PRH is helpful with anything because they're just they don't even know how to put everything on one invoice. But yeah, okay, I get it.
Well, like we asked our rep.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You don't even get me started on the distributors.
Welcome to dealing with Diamond.
He knows Diamond. I've been almost in tears several times.
See, this is what you should have asked them, Ryan. How have you liked working with comic book distributors?
I don't have the problems other people have. I really haven't. There is nonsense occasionally, but it's like, I get my books. Listen, it's fine.
Hey, have we gotten a non-beat up copy of any Turtles book that's oversized?
I just don't care anymore. It's just
Brock,
like
we haven't. Funny that you asked that.
See, it's not just us. Woohoo!
This is Penguin. I just know how this is going to be.
But we asked our PRH rep for like a list if he could give us like the top selling graphic novels, that kind of thing. That helped. And then it was just guessing, like.
and like the UPS will arrive. I mean, I don't know. We get our PRH through UPS. I don't know if they come through FedEx for you guys or whoever, but and I look on the UPS app and we're getting 15 packages that day, and one will be a box with all the comics, and the other 14 will be a bag with one or two comics in it. Why?
Yep, that are likely damaged.
Yeah,
like 50% of the time. Yeah.
But why is Diamond's website so hard to figure out?
Well, I've been using it for 30 years, so it's fine for me.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fine for you.
Yeah.
Well, for a new person, this is something I think that, like, we went to Comics Pro in February, and I brought that up at a round table, and everybody just looked at me like, why it's not that hard. And I'm like, you guys have no idea because you've been using it forever. It makes no sense to me.
All the distributors, their sites are different. They all work different. They all have different files. They all import differently. They all display stuff differently. It's just you
should just send her a copy of what you gave Marshall and I for while you were in Japan.
Oh yeah. You just get used to it eventually, and then they'll change it.
I fucking hate this shit. I'll just leave it for Ryan.
Well, but then they'll change it, a year later, and I'm like, oh, okay, must adjust my brain, and then So
I try to stay positive. So I will say this: PRH has the best, in my opinion, rep. At least for our rep, is really good. Lunar, in my opinion, has the best shipping. Diamond has the best. Let me get back to you on that one.
There's nothing.
I'll get back to you on that. Can I DM it to you in a few days when I think about
it? They have the great PVC figures.
Like there's thing. You go back decades, and people complain about Diamond endlessly, and then Lunar and Penguin open up, and people are like, "Oh,
their website seems like it's decades old."
Oh, yeah, it is. They're like, I don't want. But every jerk retailer's like, "Oh, I just want to deal with Diamond. I know how it works. I don't want to deal with these new places." It's like, who cares? It's a comic. You get it from whoever. It doesn't matter. Just order it or wherever.
Brock, to your point, those PVC figures for whatever that Diamond has, man, they're like good from afar, but far from good.
That's why you open them and display them on a top shelf in your library, so people think it looks great. But because when you look it up close, it's complete garbage. We actually have one that came messed up from the manufacturer of a Harley Quinn, where it literally has there's something about Mary was one of her ponytails, so it's sticking up.
What they like had it like reversed.
It was
or
reversed
something weird.
or something
Yeah,
like it was on wrong. And so like we're like, yeah, we can't return this. So we just open it and it's in the back of the shop, just sitting on our shelf of fucked up toys.
Yeah.
It's like even the toy chest of Toy Story wouldn't take that one, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So
I was gonna bring up Comic Hub.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I will say, like, using that has been so helpful. Although I still get frustrated with that sometimes.
It's okay. It's not you.
I love Stu. I love Comic Hub. There's some things that are like the distributor websites. You're like, okay, this is just the way it is. You got to just deal with it. You know, it's you'll get used to it. You'll figure it out, and then it'll change, and you'll be like, okay, got to get used to the new thing.
I will say I cannot imagine
it makes sense at the end
opening and not having it. Like, I feel like it saved us as far as all the data and everything, and being able to look at it. I don't even know how I would begin to keep track of all that on my own.
If we showed her videos of Moby and how we used to do our pull lists, it would probably
the old ones were
like she'd probably melt.
My first job was at the comic store during the summer doing inventory. So like, right, you get the pad of paper and you're like, okay, Amazing Spider-Man 275. All right. Last week we had 4 copies on the shelf. Now I go and look on and got 2, write it down in the notepad. Okay. And then, go to the next book, and then you go down the next book on the giant pad of paper, and you're looking at every book, and okay, we're going to bring it back. All right. Let's calculate out the money. Now it's just like, it's in the computer, done, do my order.
Well, see, Ryan's forgetting when he had to do on Monday evenings when I would come into the shop and we would have to do final order cutoff. He would send me to the wall and say, all right, let's just start yelling back and forth.
How
many do we have? Batman, whatever. And I'm like, we had 10 copies. All right, I'm cutting it by 2.
It's just we would have and that was until fairly recently. I had the stuff in the system, but there was like little way to transfer that stuff over. I tell everyone, Comic Hub is far from perfect, but I don't think there's another option. The other point of sale systems
I will say that's about Comic Hub is I can see it being, when we were logging all our back issues that we had, it can be a little time consuming if you have a lot, and I can see it being time prohibitive for anybody that's got, over 100,000 back issues. I can just see that being taken forever and ever. But for us starting out, where the brand new inventory, everything's a brand new inventory, even the back issues for us, it was pretty decent. And we were able to break the new books as we get them in theory. Even though, because I have
right there.
I have 2 totes of comic books I have yet to put into the system. I just haven't got around to it.
Well, I've got an employee at the warehouse who's been putting books in the system for 2 years, and he's almost done with the front room and ready to enter the stuff in the warehouse. So, yes, it's a I
like how they laugh about my personal hell.
That's
a long drive. Actually hot, with no AC, and I have thousands of boxes.
But there's AC where the computer and the data entry stuff is, so that's the important part.
Yeah, the shipping guy. Fuck that guy.
Yeah. No.
Priorities, man. Priorities.
Yeah. I love hearing about the shop. But it's starting to get late for you guys. We'll let you guys go here in a second. But before we wrap up, tell everyone address, location, website, socials, and if you got any last questions for us or things you want us to, if you want to tell the audience anything about opening a shop that we might have missed or not talked about, feel free to let us know.
I normally go with questions, comments. Do you want to yell at me yet? Like those are pretty much it covers everything. So
I guess my question is, how many months is it going to be before we're on the copy of Forbes on the front of Forbes?
Never.
You've heard me say this on the podcast. I tell people this all the time. There's not one comic industry. There's 3,000 different comic industries, one for every shop out there. I am a firm believer in no partners, do not open 12 locations.
Oh yeah, no.
You know, like I am not, you know, I can't clone myself yet. So I can't run 2 comic shops at the same time, right? Somehow there's people out there that have like 20 shops that they run. I don't get it. Doesn't make sense to me, right? I like to be the guy at the shop when it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
I can't be in 6 different locations at the same time. Not that I don't appreciate when Brock or Marshall or my other guys step in for me, but it's like,
we just tell people it was a hostile takeover and we're the new owners, and they normally laugh about it and then get a smile on their face and walk out going, oh, maybe it did happen, and then Ryan's back the next week and they kind of have a deflated look on their face. So it's this cycle. We keep them.
I do know. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no. I was gonna say, I think the comic shops are kind of like that local bar. It's that nerd hangout. There's such a if you're just rotating in and out, random kids working there for 6 months and then quitting, like that's not what I go to a comic shop for, right? I mean, the shops where people, like you said, the person that ran the shop, where you started buying your comics. I mean, you want
in Virginia, Terry.
Yeah, people own these shops for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and it's more than just the guy at the store. It's like you've known this person your entire life, right? So I'm on, do whatever you want, but I'm a believer of just do the one thing, do it well.
That's exactly what we're aiming for.
Yeah,
because we are a small town shop.
Yeah.
Period. And that's all we're ever going to be. And I'm fine with that, because we're not going to be a big shop. We're not going to be on the level of Mile High Comics or anything like that. And we're just a small town shop providing a service to this town. And by far the biggest comment that we've gotten from people is thank you for putting us in Middletown. Because we like this town, and we want to stick around. And the other people that own businesses around are all fantastic. And everybody says, thank you for putting us here, because there's nerds in Middletown, but they're being forced to drive 25, 30 minutes to get where they want to. So we're just providing a little bit of something for everybody and trying to, and to the best of our ability. But I mean, her studio next door has basically been assumed by the store now. It's now that's like the gaming annex that people come in and play Friday Night Magic. So
the new back room and storage and everything.
I was going to ask, have you opened up a new section of cosplay photo shoots for people where they can come have professional cosplay stuff taken at your photo place?
I would love to do that, honestly. Maybe I'll add that to the list of things that I want to do. Listen, if you ever want to start a business, just let me know, because I will be your hype girl. And I will make it happen.
And with the internet and social media and online sales and Comic Hub and, store exclusive covers and conventions, and, being just a one sole shop, that can be enough, like that could be plenty. You can not only make a living, you make a good living if you know what you're doing and you keep your inventory tight and, buy stuff well and, sell stuff at a good price. And, it's the there are plenty of shops run by jerks that, run forever. But, I tell people, like, half the people at my wedding were customers, right? Like, my friends, I've known these people forever. So, it becomes such a,
it's a community.
It's way more than just a business.
Chris already has 6 of our customers' phone numbers in his phone.
Yep.
In fact, I just ran into a customer tonight at the grocery store, and he was telling me about everything and tell me why he hadn't been in for a while. And it's kind of a sad story. I won't dive into details, but but a lot of good people, man. And it's just, they know you. And digressing to your question a little bit, you asked about what mistakes we've made. I was under no illusion that the mistakes were not going to be made. Most of the mistakes that we've made have been ordering maybe too many of a book or not enough of a book. And our goal is pretty much just to limit the amount of pain that those mistakes cause financially. So if you don't order enough books, you don't order enough books. Fine. If you order too many books, ouch. But hey,
my rule has been, if you sell out a number 1, it's your fault. If you sell out a number 2, it's the customer's fault. That's what subscriptions are for. That's what Comic Hub's for. That's what
I like that.
pull lists are for. number one issues, it's worth, like if it's a random nothing book, that's one thing. But if it's, look, this is a Batman book, this is a Wolverine book, you're never going to go wrong with having an extra copy or two, right? Even in the back issue bins or whatever, it'll sell down the line to some random person that walks in. But yeah, get those subscriptions. I'm a big believer in subscriptions and pull lists. Don't go crazy on variant covers. Yeah, every book that you don't sell is $2 out of your pocket. I don't like selling out of everything. Some shops are like that. You go in Wednesday morning, they have 4 comics on the wall, and it's like, well, what are you doing here? Like,
right.
But you'll, over time, as the months go by, especially with something like Comic Cover, you have all the sales history, right? If you got 3 extra copies, trim a copy. If you've got, if you sell out, order 1 extra, order 2 extra, just, keep a little bit here, over the big ongoing stuff. It may have been Brian Hibbs. I can't remember who said this, but it was like, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? It's like every book that you don't sell is money out of your pocket. But I also don't think you should sell out of everything the day it comes out, because you do have people that will come in.
Right.
So it's a very delicate balance.
Well, also it's you have things that like Ryan over-ordered on Batman 3 Jokers heavily. But we have
on purpose
because we have consistently kept selling like those 3 issues for years.
It's been out for 5 years, and I still have it on our wall because people are like, "Oh, a random person walks in, they're like, oh, this is a 3-issue miniseries of Batman and the Joker. I'll buy this." They don't care. They don't care when it came out.
Like
right?
They don't care what they'll find a cover they like because there's multiple covers, but like they'll buy it even though there's a graphic novel sitting on the shelf.
Do you group them together, like 1, 2, and 3, or
it's just right next to each other?
Yeah, I have 3. I have 3 permanent sections in our DC current release wall for Batman 3 Jokers, and every week we sell at least a set or 2, and it's been for years. We ordered because they had all these specials that came with it, and we had tons of pre-orders. And I was like, I have a belief on it's Jeff Johns. It's like, I'm gonna try something with this, and it worked. I don't recommend doing that with everything or even a lot of stuff, right? But like we had like the Wolverine on FOC tonight. We had the Wolverine a Donald Duck.
Oh yeah,
book, right?
Yep.
That one from Marvel. Their first actual like what if comic. I was like, yes, I will put this on the wall, and we will keep this in the kids section.
That's also because you're a Donald Duck man.
Well, yeah. Of course, I'm a Donald guy. But it's like this will sell over a long term. Most books, no. Most books are going to sell. You want to sell out within the first week or whatever.
Do you guys do that a lot with like a mini series where if you have them left, bundle them together?
So we do we do that on eBay. We sell a lot of sets on eBay. But a lot of shops do that. Yeah. Especially if you're like, oh yeah, we'll put this out for, we got 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Throw it out for $10.
When we order our books, we try to, we look at how many customers we have, and we look at our sales, and we figure that all in with the goal of having 2 for the shelf, and then limit at that. If we sell out, we can always order more. People can always order more through us if they want. That's the typical goal. It's not always successful, but it's more successful than it's not.
The one we really under ordered on was Helverine.
Oh my god!
Because we had to do the FOC before we were open, I think, or like shortly after we opened. So we were like, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
and again, you're going to see this as the years go on. You'll see these books you look at, and you're like, "This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life."
You will literally have that Ryan Reynolds
gift,
of these, and you'll just why?
Why? No. But that's the thing. You look at it, and you're like, Helverine, huh?
That's what I
people will buy this. People will buy this.
I was like, let's do 3 copies, and we open at 11 on Wednesday, and by 11:15, all 3 copies are gone, and I'm like, well, I fucked that one up pretty good, didn't I?
Yeah.
I was like, didn't know that was going to be a big one.
There will be a lot more Helverines in the days and weeks to come. Trust me. You'll grow to. It's like you'll have. I hate that I have to sell this book, but boy, the money works okay, and But always be careful, right, with those number 2s, number 3s. Look at that sales history because I always look like if we sell 20 copies of number 1, it is unlikely we're going to sell 25 copies of number 2, right? So if you sell 20, you're like, okay, this is sort of my base. It's been a week, likely a lot of those sales. So I'll go like 18 on number 2, right? And then by the time 2 comes out, if I've like sold a bunch more number 1s, you're like, all right, let me reorder a little bit. All right, we sold out at 18. I'm going to go 22, but don't go like, oh, I'm going to order 50, like just up a little, down a little. You're always adjusting by copies here and there. It's endless, but it's the job, and it eventually becomes second nature. Yeah. You'll get it.
We actually had our first triple digit order last week or 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
One person wanted the 1 in 100 for 1 in 100 for the new Turtles that's coming out.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And so we ordered that, and then we did the thing say, hey, why not? Because we may or may not have
Turtles
taken.
Number 1 that's a great book for a shop like you to just kind of stick at the front counter and be like, hey guys, we're a new shop. It's a new series, like that's a perfect book.
We're doing a pizza party on our own.
Oh, cool.
Not I know there was one that you could get, but we, to amp up the pre-orders, we said anybody who pre-ordered would get an invitation to our pizza party.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We worked with a local shop down the street, that local pizza place called The Slice. They're huge Turtles fans there because they got TMNT stuff all over inside their place. And I talked to the guy, and he's like, yeah, we'll give you those pizzas for cost. So we're doing a co-sponsoring with them, and just kind of involving ourselves in the community, which is kind of something you have to do in a small town.
Yep.
Especially in the
Midwest.
Midwest.
For them or something to give out to customers and get them over there with the pizza. Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect type of thing to do. Because you're going to get so much cross promotion from them.
Right.
It's incentive covers are a big part of the comic industry, but it's the same thing, right? Be careful about stretching for those, charge a premium, they go for money, it's like, don't give them away for free. Like, that's good profit in those incentive covers. But if someone wants 1 in 50 and you only order 5 copies, it's like, it's real tough to make the money back on those books. So, it's all, I always tell people, if we're close or we're going to qualify, yeah, of course. But if we're way off, I had someone that wanted the Werewolf by Night 1 in 50 for this new one, and I'm just like, man, we're just not close. And he goes, well, what's your price to get it? And I said, look, here's my price. If you want to do that, I'll get it for you. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. I'll take it. It's cheaper than eBay. And I'm like, because I looked at eBay and people were like selling them for like $125 already or something.
Yeah, he's paying a premium for it.
Yeah. Always be careful. My one last bit of advice. Well, my number 1 advice to everyone is pay your taxes. That's the first thing.
That's also my
job. The
most
most important thing, Jessica. that, so I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
That is rule number 1 in business: pay your taxes. The line, the customers are your best friends until they're not. Always make sure you have that line with the customers, because again, I literally invited these people to my wedding, but at the end of the day, I order product for them on a goodwill basis and they owe me money, right? Like it is that, take care of business first and then friendship as long as the rest of the day, right? Yeah. But it's like, that is the hardest part of this job. Is I hate being our buddy Timmy was like, I didn't get into the job to be a debt collector, right? It is the worst part of the job. So be firm, just get paid, get all that stuff out of the way. You could be goofy and friendly about it, but sometimes you got to send the business email. Don't feel bad, because I definitely have felt bad contacting customers before, and I realized it's not my fault, right? Like I would feel guilty. I'm like, well, it's not my fault. They didn't pay, that is the hardest part of the job, because you become friends with so many people. And then one day you look in their box and they're like, they owe me $400 and they haven't been in. And what do I do? Right. Yeah. And that's the worst feeling. So
do you think that will ever change in the industry? The fact that we order product and they don't give us any money up front, because it's not common with anything else.
This is Stu's biggest goal, because he does not do this, right? In Comic Hub in Australia or in New Zealand, right? A comic is like $20 there. it's all prepay for him, right? So this is the big change the Comic Hub is implementing is a prepay system, and it's a big deal. Like I won't tell you. I personally strongly recommend against discounts for subscriptions.
Yeah,
plenty of
we
people
don't do that.
I thank you very much. That I feel like that's slowly going away. But back in the day, it'd be like if you're not offering 30% off and free bags and boards and free previews, you're not competitive. Now that is sort of shifting. But like, yeah, those type of things. The next step is, oh yeah, you turned in your order form on Comic Hub. Now pay for it before we order it. Right? I think that is the next step. It's just going to be a process to get people.
I mean, we have people who are like, do I pay for that now? Or,
yeah.
Like, I think people are expecting that they should pay.
Right. Once that's added, my personal plan is new customers, I will require payment for their subscriptions. For new ongoing subscribers, for our people that have been with us, I'm not going to require it. But that will eventually, people will leave and people will come, and then everything will shift to prepaid eventually, right? Because it is insane.
I mean, that's what kills stores is that people don't pick up their books.
Yeah, I just ordered 27 Marvel versus DC omnibuses on Goodwill.
Wow. You're such a nice person.
Yeah, but if you have like 3 of those that don't show up, you're still going to be able to sell them.
It's know these people, but still, I have to put that order in going, I really hope they all come in the first week this ships, because otherwise, holy shit.
How many did we order total?
I mean, I think I ordered like 30, 31 or something like that.
Of just the Jim Lee cover?
No, of all covers combined.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We ordered one.
Yeah, I was gonna
say you have to.
No. Trust me, one is more than a lot of stores will order. We do pretty well with omnibuses. This is on another level. I generally don't pre-sell or have 30 orders.
This will be the most pre-ordered omnibus we've ever had.
It is 10 times our normal orders for these things. Yeah. So trust me. One, you'll move it. Someone will buy it. That's keep it at the front counter. It's a cool piece. Someone will be like, "Oh my god!" Yeah. No, trust me. Most stores order 0. We are an outlier for omnibuses. But yeah, it's a tough part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing a lot of this on faith. But if you wanted to start charging people tomorrow, there's nothing that stops you, right? I mean, yeah. There's things within Comic Hub that are a little funky that it might not work, but prepay is coming, and I would highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So you may get some blowback from people that are like, oh well, I used to have a subscription, now I'm to pay for this stuff before, blah blah blah. But like, well, where's that shop now, right? Like,
if it comes soon, I don't think we'll have that because we were just so new. So we don't have a lot of. I mean, most of our customers are like new comic book readers.
Yep. The old adage with comic stores is when a comic store comes up, all these people become comic stores. When the comic store goes away, those people stop becoming comic fans, right? Like they just stop becoming customers. They don't generally transition to another shop. Maybe a couple will, but a lot of people are like, oh, my shop closed, I guess I'm not buying comics anymore.
I think that a good 60% of our customers are new comic readers.
Yeah. Yep.
Easily.
Because it just hasn't had one in town. There isn't one accessible. They did. Not a day goes by where someone doesn't walk in and they're like, oh, they still make these,
Yeah.
Been around for 30 years.
So speaking of which, that omnibus you ordered, we ordered one. It was the George Perez cover.
Yeah.
And we noticed like a lot of the books are coming out with variant covers. They're like George Perez variant cover. Okay, awesome. And then the George Perez variant cover facsimile with the white screen to
like
take
it's blank.
The blank.
Yeah, the blank cover. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't think George Perez is going to be drawn on those anymore. So
it's meant for them to take and have who they want to draw something.
Yeah,
as long as it's not George Perez, right?
we saw a lot of blank sketch covers. Yeah. So like that George Perez cover, the one for the Marvel DC Omnibus, right? So that's a reprint of an old piece of artwork, right? So with that, with like the facsimiles and I mean that's all just reprinted artwork. But the blanks, I did probably just as George Perez because he drew the book inside. But the blank sketch covers, a lot of those people do artwork on them, take them to conventions. They're really popular. We sell quite a few. Do you ever
like we have a Cincinnati Comic-Con that's only like 20 minutes from us.
Nice.
Do you ever like push those if there's like a con coming up?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of our guys, when there's conventions coming, like I think like our guy Lane that's on here, he ordered like 5 of the Zatanna one. And what else was out this past week? He got a ton of them because he gets those sketches done. He gets commissions at conventions. So
the Godzilla facsimile had one.
Yeah. When the Godzilla reprint.
Yeah, the reprint had one, and I can't remember.
I think we sold a lot of those. Those do well if there's conventions because you people look at them and they're like, "What the hell is this?" And then you explain it, and they're
like, "I wonder if I need to explain it."
Yeah.
Well, one thing we got advantage is at the Cincinnati Comic-Con this year, Kevin Eastman is going to be there, so we're going to really push the thing. If you want to get signed, 20 minutes down the road next month. So hopefully that will sell some.
Yeah. Yep, that's perfect. Yep.
And
that's great.
And with the hub, you'll start noticing people ordering online of stuff that's popular for that week.
Oh yeah, all the orders come in.
All the spec people.
Again, I tell people this all the time. It's like, if you want a book and it's $50 on eBay on Tuesday, we're likely already sold out. That's why you pre-order early at FOC and you do all the stuff because if you get a subscription, because that means you'll get it. So it's just with a lot of new customers too. It's education. It's getting them used to the system. It's comic. There's nothing like the comic industry. It's so stupid. It's so weird. Nothing makes any sense. It's just this thing was put together by duct tape and cloth. Like nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Like it's just such a It's a bunch of this. Every shop's its own little weird microcosm of oddities and people are there.
I've worked
faith more than business, and it's just such an odd industry. There's nothing like it in the world.
I've worked at a local shop here, like helping them out, and I've helped them move locations, and it was a completely different experience than moving our store. And like everything is run differently, and they don't even use Hub; they use Lightspeed, and there's all this like, why? Like, okay, if it works for you, it works for you. But you'll find what works the best, and where that okay, well that worked or that didn't work. And it just you got your feet wet.
Yep.
Now you're just going to be standing in it for years.
I do want to thank you guys for one thing. A few years back, you through your podcast started talking about that book Mouse, and on that I actually went out and got that book. Yeah. And read it, and it is. I constantly push it. It's actually one of our bigger sellers right now, still to this day. And it's just, I think it should be required reading. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, in certain states they can't.
In some places you can't. Or maybe you can now. But,
God damn! I shipped so many of those.
Yeah. That was an experience. There are. A lot of comics are Batman punching Joker in the face, but not all of them.
There's a lot.
They Called Us Enemy is another very good one by George Takei.
March with John Lewis is another one of those I would recommend. They have we
keep a lot of that stuff.
It's a box set that they have for that one.
Yeah, we keep a lot of that stuff kind of just on displays, like on the top of our shelves and stuff like that. Yeah, because they're all pretty important. So
agreed.
Look, we make money on Batman and Spider-Man. That's for there's some shops where Mouse is their best-selling comic for sure, right? I mean, there are plenty of shops out there. We are still a superhero, Marvel, DC subscription, single issue driven store, but we'll always carry those type of books, and there's always those people looking for that. So it's good to have a good mix of stuff. But know your audience, know what they got, know what they're interested in. Some places do really well with certain titles, and other places can't sell it at all. But figure it out as time goes on.
Well, I mean, we also ventured into the trading card games, Magic the Gathering, and those have been fairly decent sales for us as of late as well. Yeah, so those are going pretty big, and it is true. Oh my God, I see how much people pay them left and right. And I'm like, okay, cool, have fun with it. But a kid that works for us, he said that if you ever have a kids and you want to keep them out of drugs, teach them how to play Magic the Gathering because they won't be able to afford drugs.
Oh, you like Disney? Here's Kana. Oh, you like Star Wars? Here's Star Wars Unlimited.
Yep.
I always give the same advice. Gaming stuff is great. Be careful with single cards. Be careful with PSA, all that stuff. Again, it can kind of overtake the shop. Figure out what percentage you want to do this stuff with. There's a lot of comic shops where they barely carry comics, and they're a game store. I have no problem with that. It's just, know what you are, right? So, gaming can very easily take over a comic shop. They are not the same audience. They may seem the same audience, but there is a difference between comic people and game people. So, keep that. There is a lot of crossover, but there is also very different kind of things that people are looking for and experiences when people go into those shops. So I find it tough to mix. I generally am more of a fan of kind of, you can dabble in some stuff, but kind of leaning one way or another a little bit heavier.
Right.
There's definitely money in gaming for sure. Do not get me wrong. If we had the room and the space,
we're waiting for Mathnasium to go away.
I want to tear down the place next to us, but it's tricky, right? That stuff is very finicky. People will buy Superman. People will buy Batman. Magic and Pokemon and that stuff, at this point is pretty solid. But there is, like anything, there's it's tricky products. You got to know what you're selling. You can't just just buy it. Who knows? Just
and don't get caught up in Funko.
Oh no,
no.
It's the same thing. Again,
people ask us about toys too, and I'm like, no,
nope,
no.
We have high end statues.
Yeah.
The closest thing to toys that we have is we actually have a pet section over that we carry leashes, dog toys, cat toys, collars, dogs and
like
cats.
Themed merchandise.
Yeah, themed merch. Yeah,
it's all themed, and that section right there is nonprofit. So every quarter we take all the profits that we get from that section and we're going to give it to a random animal shelter around us. Just help out their furry friends. But that's the closest thing to toys that we have and that we will ever have.
Again, so your favorite character comes along and you got to get that Nova figure.
Well, again, it's not bad to have a little bit of, some stuff, because you will get that random kid that walks in and they just want a Batman action figure, right? But it is like, again, pick a lane and, you can have some other stuff in it, but it's you only have so much space. You only have so much money. Your customers only have so much money. There is sort of and your knowledge only goes so far. It's impossible to know everything about everything. So sort of like pick something, do it well, and, and keeping that and, dabble on the sides. But it's really tough. I've seen shops that are like stacked floor to ceiling of everything. And you're like, well, this is like so friggin' overwhelming. And what do I, do I want anything? It's cool, but like it's more a museum than a shop.
Right.
I've seen that a lot. So
are you talking about that basement shop up in Oregon I went to?
No, that's your place.
Oh, Jesus.
I would call that a museum.
We designed the outlay of our place to have wide open spaces, lots of wide open spaces. The vacuums that we have are actually in filing cabinets, which have 4 drawers in each one. They're metal. We have 10 of them. They're all bolted together, front to back and left to right. So if you want to try to tip them over, go for it. If you can lift 15,000 pounds, I have fun.
Yeah.
But if one of those drawers is completely open and somebody's standing in front of it, there is still a good 3.5 to 4 feet behind them that somebody can walk by them and not be in their personal space.
That's good.
That's great. Yeah.
When we did the layout, we actually replaced the carpet. We put vinyl flooring in painted the walls, and it's just keeping it clean. In fact, I was just there today, and we were closed, and a lot of scruff marks on the floors and everything. So I was just out there on, my hands and knees with a magic eraser, just getting those scruff marks up, just to keep it nice and maintain maintenance, preventive maintenance, if you will.
I probably said this in one of our conversations over DMs a while ago. I forgot one of my other most important rules for a comics shop. Where's your new releases?
Oh, they're on the wall?
In the shop. Where?
Well, no. Is it in the front or the back of the store?
They're in with the.
You do the mix. You do the mix with everything. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
But they're labeled.
Yep, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah,
those little racks that we have. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. The old mistake the original owner of the shop has is when we opened, he had the new releases right at the front of the store, and what that would cause would people to walk in, get the new releases, and walk out. And it's like, no, these are your bread and butter. You put them in the milk and butter and eggs. You put them in the back of the store, so people have to walk the entire shop to get the new releases. Yeah. If they're mixed in, they're seeing the entire shop. So you're fine. You're good. You're good.
Yeah. Okay. They're all mixed in. Everything's alphabetical.
Yep.
That we have DC. We have independent DC on one side and then Marvel on the other.
And everything's labeled, like we have signs above each section.
That doesn't matter. It's the clerk's mentality.
They won't see it. Customers don't see it.
You can have sale, and they go, "Are you guys having a sale?"
They stand in front of the Spider-Man section. They're like, "Do you guys have any Spider-Man comics?" As they're staring at a rack of 50 Spider-Man books. Like, "You guys have any Spider-Man books?"
I literally had a guy go, "So do you have Watchmen?" As he's standing right in front of me, where there's that new digest size Watchmen.
Yeah.
Right in front of him.
Like right there.
I guarantee if you put free in front of it, they'll read it in a second.
Oh, yeah. Free, they just like, how many of these can I take? One.
And endlessly making fun of your customers after they leave the store is just
5 seconds.
It's just healthy. It's just healthy, right? I mean, it's just it's
One, two,
it's just healthy,
3,
right? Like
four,
it's therapy. It's because you're the therapist.
That's what we do.
You're the therapist. So the therapist sometimes has to also go to therapy. So trust me, it's fine. You don't feel bad about it.
There's these big signs telling people that like all the Marvel back issues are on this side and all the DC and Indie are on this side. And I tell people, I'm like, they don't know. So I'm like, Marvel over here, DC and Independent over there. They're in alphabetical order.
Anyone that has worked retail knows everyone that works retail hates every customer. That's just how it is. That's just the rule of life. That's just how it works. If you work retail, you hate every person that walks into your store. I mean, you may love them at the time, but they leave and you're like, oh, thank God, I can't deal with this anymore. I hate everyone. So trust me, it's fine. It's fine.
Chris loves everybody, and that's why he runs the register, and I sit in the office in the back.
And just kind of hide away from everyone.
I don't love everybody. I was an air traffic controller for 23 years. I hate pilots.
So when someone's looking for Batman, do you pull out the sticks and you're like aiming them towards the Batman section? Like, over there.
No. I was a guy. I worked in the tower. I was a guy that basically stopped people from hitting each other.
That's on aisle A2 or whatever.
Well, I do fall into old habits because if I'm given a read back on somebody, I just did it again, air traffic term. If I'm reading back somebody's email address to me, I will use phonetics. I like for use. Okay, so verify it's Romeo Yankee Alpha November Hotel India Golf India November Sierra, and you're like, yeah. I was like, okay, I just can't help it. It's some natural old habit. But hey, there's worse habits that I could have picked up in that career that I didn't. So,
although one of the things I will say is, as a new shop, try to keep as nice a shop as you can. So many people have come into our store saying, this is the cleanest comic book store I have ever been in. And we're not necessarily cleaning every day and being all like dusting and doing all that stuff, but like having an organized and clean shop goes a long way with people.
That's one of the biggest comments we get is how nice and open, clean, and just like easy to find stuff. We get that comment a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we vacuum the floor once a day at the end of every day. And I mop the floors and dust everything once a week. So and we try to keep it fragrant in there, because there have been some people that have walked in that have not been.
Yep.
That was a gamer guy, right? I mean, I'm not trying to label them, but sometimes I feel board games should just come with a stick of deodorant. I'm not trying to be mean, guys.
But no, actually, they weren't really. Most of them were just like people just walking out of the street, getting out of the heat or whatnot, and so we got a little Febreze behind the counter when that happens, just to keep it nice,
keep
nice
the door
in there.
open. Yeah.
But
I mean, people walk in. That's
well. In California, we get a group walking in, and then we'll be like, we gotta leave the door open for a minute, because otherwise it smells like a fucking hot fucking shop. Yeah. Oh, it's so bad. It's like, oh Jesus.
It does. It definitely has happened. Yeah.
But hey, it's a little Febreze and everything's back to normal. No big whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah. AC units and opening a door and letting some air move around does a miracle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it is much too late for you guys. This is a great conversation. I'm gonna let you guys go. But before you go, Chris, Jessica, why don't you guys tell us shop address,
pimp your place,
website, socials, anything you guys got coming up? Yeah, let us know.
All right. The address is Crooked Dog Comics. It's a picture of a dog. It was our old dog Seamus. He was a boxer. We lost him in 2018, but he was my favorite. The butthead. He was a butthead dog, but I loved him. But we named it after him because if you looked at him, it looked like somebody punched his jaw from the left and his nose from the right, because his face was very off-centered. Mm-hmm. So we just named it after. Don't worry, nobody did.
No.
Like, I was like, is this a little Mickey thing? Like,
he was.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, bring your pooch down to Crooked Dog Comics. I'll beat the shit out of him.
Oh gosh.
No, of course not. Our address is 1373 Central Avenue in Middletown, Ohio, 45044. We are on the hub, so you can reach us through there. You can email us. We're pretty fair. Try to keep yourselves very accessible, easy to find. We do actually forgot to mention this. We do have a small podcast of our own. So you're welcome to join the ones or twos of listeners that we have for that. And it is basically about what we did opening up a store.
Nice.
Fantastic.
And, yeah, so
extended versions of this chat. You can,
kind of, but much more specific and very much more niche.
Why did we order so many of this? Why didn't we order so many of this? We get single ply toilet paper. Do we get double ply toilet paper? How much? What should we do for this? What scent should we put in the Glade plug-in? That stuff, right?
Yep, just a little bit of that.
More in the weeds, yeah. Okay.
But other than that,
you can find us on Instagram at Crooked Dog Comics, Facebook, and TikTok. My sister makes TikToks for us. She just tells us when she wants us to do videos.
That's something Ryan is not going to get behind. Comics conspiracy on TikTok.
Much too old for video. Much too old for
She's had one video post that she posted go viral. So
nice.
Yeah.
It's fun.
But that's where you can find us. Oh,
excellent.
And crookeddogcomics.com. I guess that's important too, our website.
A direct link to the site. Yeah. Fantastic. It was great having you guys
thanks
on.
For
Super excited
Thank
for
you.
The store. Yeah, glad things are going well so far. Keep us updated as the store goes on, and
sure.
I am always around. Brock's always around. You got any questions, store stuff? Continue.
Thank
to reach
you so
out
much.
To us.
You're always helping me in the retailer Facebook group.
Oh yeah. No, it's pretty active on the hub retailer group, but it's it's a lot of questions. Sometimes I miss stuff, but I try my best. So
yeah, you're usually there.
If you have any shipping questions, I can answer those pretty easily.
We typically use the Gemini mailers.
I do not know why it changed to Russian for the freight. I have no clue.
Oh,
we got some random order where like the freight name came in like another language.
Oh, I think I saw you post something about that.
Yeah, like what the heck is this? That's strange.
Who knows?
I mean, it was going to Russia. The guy was using an intermediary, but I was like, why did our system change it?
Yeah, really weird. Really weird.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic.
In Mother Russia, toilet paper like freight. Take very long time.
It's potato.
Well, I'm going to give you guys the wrap up here with from our end here, because we do have some wonderful Patreon backers. Edward at geekyvillain.com, Joe Duff, Kelsey May, Craig Anderson at the Executive Evolution
he's close.
Podcast.
He can go check their store out. He's in
he
Indiana.
can.
So
yeah, he's not
I've talked to Craig. Great guy.
Nice.
Oh,
Very
nice.
good guy.
Nice.
Craig, get your ass over there.
Yeah, Craig, where you been, dude?
Post on. Well, you can see the post on social media to believe it.
Jimmy Rivera at the Social Forum Podcast. I want to get him out there. And of course, we are at comicconspiracypodcast.com, which crashed and I had to completely redo. So I put up something kind of temporary for right now. Thanks, WordPress, for your shitty update thing that ruined our entire website. Wonderful. Great. Oh, well, all good. Comicconspiracy.biz. Oh, and I should say, not to I mean, whatever, it's my podcast, so I'll talk about my store too. We are having our 4th of July sale this weekend, so everyone listening to this podcast gets first crack at that. Saturday, Sunday, we're doing 25% off in shop, and we're also, because it's going to be a little on the hot side, so we're going to extend that to our online store as well. We're going to have a coupon code, so that'll be all... We'll get that out for Saturday, Sunday as well for in-store pickup or shipping. So it's going to include our warehouse stock too. So get some good discounts.
I hate my life.
Yeah, but you have to pull anything till Monday, dude. Brock, estimates are already down to like 91 on Saturday and 88 on Sunday.
That doesn't matter.
It was supposed to be 110 degrees.
Yeah, it's good. Watch, it reverses course and it's 180.
It has dropped down significantly in the last couple of days, so I'm very happy for that. I was not going to do a sale at 110 degrees outside.
That's insane.
Stuff outside.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we will like every couple of years have like 1 or 2 random days like that. It's very uncommon. But it was like, oh yeah, sure, of course it's going to be during the sale. Wonderful.
The sale we normally don't do.
Yeah, but it's like every other year. Like 4th of July, we do like every other year, every third year.
COVID really messed up our sales schedule.
Yeah, our schedule was all off.
We were having a great day on Saturday, and we had a crazy storm, and our power went out, and we lost 3.5 hours of being open.
Yep. That's retail life. It happens. Power goes out, you're like, well, I'm going to wait 10 minutes, and if it doesn't come on, I'm going home. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I normally go.
Much what I did.
Shut that, lock that door. All right, well, see you later. Goodbye. Nothing I can do.
There's a Steam sale going on. Might as well go home.
Yeah.
You can order stuff online. I'm just not going to do anything until, power comes back
Tuesday.
on.
Yeah, it's nothing I can do. Yeah. If you're on Blue Sky, you can follow myself at Ryan Higgins, Brock's Brock Sager, Toby's Toby XI, Kevin's at Kevin Sharp, although nobody uses it but me. Comics Con stores on Twitter still. Brock's still on Twitter pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Still over there quite often. Yeah. And go listen to Geek Box. That's me and my buddy Ryan Scott. More than likely, the next episode will be all about Final Fantasy XIV's new expansion, just like all the most recent episodes have been about Final Fantasy XIV, just pre-expansion. And now we're going to talk about...
You guys need to play some Helldivers too. Come on. Seriously.
You and your Helldivers. Okay, it is like super late for these guys. I'm going to let them go. We're going much longer than I anticipated, but that's great.
I don't think they mind.
Chris and Jessica, thank you guys. Thank you guys very much for being on.
Thank you.
Good luck with the shop. And again, we will talk and definitely want to hear about it as it goes on. So I'm going to hit stop recording now. So everyone listening, goodbye. And everyone here, hang out for just 1 minute.
And
goodbye.
I'm still trying to figure out what Diamond is best at, but I'm not coming up with anything.
Yeah, take some time. Take some time to think about it. We'll find out. All right. We'll see everyone next week.